Offend them. Offend them. People are waiting for you to remind them of their dreams. You have to be willing to offend people and stand in the gap for your truth and for theirs.
You're listening to Make Some Noise podcast, episode number 522 with guest Rachel Luna. Welcome to Make Some Noise podcast, your guide for strategies, tools, and insight to empower yourself. I'm your host, Andrea Owen, global speaker, entrepreneur, life coach since 2007, and author of 3 books that have been translated into 18 languages and are available in 22 countries. Each week, I'll bring you a guest or a lesson that will help you maximize unshakable confidence, master resilience, and make some noise in your life. You ready? Let's go. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the podcast. I am so glad that you're here. First of all, I want to give just a huge thank you and express my gratitude to those of you that filled out the podcast listener survey. My team and I have poured over your answers, especially those of you that talked about the different topics that you want to hear, suggested guests, some of which are so famous. I thank you that you think I have the clout to get some of these people on. Like A-list celebrities. I'm like, okay, if you have a connection to Michelle Obama, by all means, please connect me. And I would be happy to have her on the show. No, but in all seriousness, thank you so much. I think there was just under 100 of you that took the time to do that. And it means so much to me. It also helps me when you fill out the demographics, like for advertising and stuff, because I want to make sure that you are hearing from advertisers that not only I think are great, but that you might actually be able to be helped by. So thank you again for that. And then the only other announcement I have before I jump into today's show is that this fall, I am filling up my calendar for speaking events. And if you work at a company or you own a company where you do trainings and events and women's networking things and things like that, go check out my speaking page. And if you think, oh, we don't have the budget for a famous international keynote speaker like Andrea Owen, fill it out anyway. I've had a few conversations recently with people who didn't think they had the budget and were able to work something out. I am negotiable. It depends. If it's the perfect audience and we're a perfect fit, I'm happy to make some accommodations and see what we can figure out. So AndreaOwen.com/speaking. I've changed up my keynotes and I have one around roller derby, and I'm not teaching you how to play roller derby. No, but it's about fear and how to overcome it and how to get your best life using the metaphor of roller derby. So that being said, let's move into today's episode. Rachel Luna has been on the show several times and she has a new book out. And I just adore her. With this particular episode, we kind of meander for a little bit. So I want you to stick with us because, I don't know, maybe about 2/3 towards the end, 3/4 of the way through or so, we have an interesting conversation and end up disagreeing on something kind of vehemently, but also agreeing. She's such a great friend. I've known Rachel for forever. She's always been such a big supporter of mine and I of hers. So we definitely agree to disagree on some things. So if you don't know her, here's a little bit about her. Rachel Luna, author of Permission to Offend, is a highly sought after international speaker and certified master neuroscience coach. As an international speaker, Rachel has been invited to share her powerful talks all across the globe, from the US to Europe to Japan, and has been featured in Forbes twice, the Huffington Post, Success Magazine, and Latina Magazine, among many others. If you're ready to return to your truth, own it, and live fully self-expressed without fear of rejection, judgment, or defamation, so that you can step into your next level of elevation, Rachel Luna is the girl you call. She has a really long bio that I didn't read, but just some of the highlights. I don't know if we get into it in the show, but Rachel lost both of her parents to AIDS. She's struggled with eating disorders, alcoholism, depression. And then she beat breast cancer in 2019, which was not that long ago. So she's had quite quite the hills to climb. And I hope that you love her as much as I do. And so without further ado, here is Rachel. Rachel Luna is back on the show.
Woo!
I feel like this is maybe your fifth or sixth time on.
Is it? What an honor.
You might be holding the record. But I'm so excited because your book, as we're recording this, it's not quite out yet, but when it comes out, it will be out. And this is so exciting. I want you to say the title of it.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, because I love saying it.
Okay,
so the book is called Permission to Offend, The Compassionate Guide for Living Unfiltered and Unafraid.
I love that so much. I've been so excited for this book because I've been talking to you about it forever. And it's so much in alignment with the work that I do and with Make Some Noise that came out last year. So let's get into it. I mean, let's first talk about the title, Permission to Offend. So is this a book about like telling people to fuck off and like how to flip tables and, quit your job offensively?
offend them, show your ass to the world. No, absolutely not. In fact, one of the things that I say very, very early on is that this book is not meant to be used as a weapon. Okay. So when I talk about giving yourself permission to offend, the first thing I remind you is that there are people that are offended that you exist. There are people that are offended that you have the audacity to have a dream, to want to change your life, to want to cut your hair, to want to start a business. I actually had a client who, I don't know if you remember back in the day, Andrea, I had very hot pink hair.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Back in the good old days. And so I had a client and she always used to remark about my hair. And one day she was like, I wish I could color my hair like a funky color purple. And I was like, well, why don't you do it? And she goes, oh no, I could never. My mother-in-law would be so offended. And I just looked at her and I had no filter, zero.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? Who cares what your mother-in-law is going to think?
Right.
Why would she be offended? I couldn't even fathom it. And then she went on to explain, they were very conservative and it would cause all these problems. And I thought, what kind of life is it that you don't even have sovereignty over the color of your hair?
Mm-hmm.
This makes no sense to me. And so then a couple of years later, I was speaking at an event and I was talking about sales confidence because you know me. Yeah. I love talking about helping women make more money, human beings in general, but most often women or people that identify as women, I should say. And so I'm speaking at this event about sales confidence. And I asked the ladies in the room, I said, okay, someone tell me why you're afraid to sell. And one woman stood up and she said, I'm afraid I'm going to offend them or like I'm going to bother them and message them too much. And I couldn't even help myself, Andrea. I just yelled into the microphone, offend them, offend them. Like people are waiting for you to remind them of their dreams. Andrea, have you had this experience where a client will come to you and say, I really want to be a coach. I want to do X, Y, and Z. And you say, great, come on, honey, let's go do it. Mm-hmm. And then a couple of sessions later, she's like, I'm just not sure if I should be a coach because like everyone is going to say this and that.
Yeah. All the fear comes in.
Yeah. All the fear comes in. And now all of a sudden I have to remind you of how great you are and how worthy you are to become a coach and to walk in your purpose. So I told the woman, I said, you have to be willing to offend people and stand in the gap for your truth and for theirs.
Yeah.
So that's in a nutshell, some of the things that we talk about in the book.
I love how fired up you get about this. Like one of my favorite things about you. Well, one of the things in the book, and I know that people love to kind of categorize themselves and see themselves in, like online quizzes and astrology and things like that. So you have 4 offender identities. Can you talk about what those are?
Oh my gosh. I thought you'd never ask. Okay. So when we talk about the offender identity framework, the first thing I want to say is you will most likely vacillate between all four. So this is not the kind of thing where it's like, that's your archetype, that's who you are, and that's how God designed you. No, this is part of the programming and the conditioning. So the four offender identities are the critic, the pleaser, the wounded, and the empathetic.
Okay.
And so in the book, there's a little 4-quadrant chart. And the way that I break it up is you're either operating in high truth or low truth. So when you are in your high truth, you are speaking your truth. You're saying what you believe. You're doing what you want. You're really living life on your own terms. When you are operating in low truth, you're really living to please other people. You are timid. You're not showing up. You have ideas and strong opinions, but you really hold yourself back from asserting them. So that's the up and down axis. Then from left to right, you're either operating in low faith or high faith. You already know low faith is you're not taking steps for your dreams. You're not doing anything. You might take 1 step forward and 3 steps back. There's a lot of timidity, fear, anxiety, restlessness.
Probably a lot of comparison too, and like looking at what other people are doing and wishing that you could do the same thing. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, even as you say those words, it causes like a physical discomfort for me. Because I have lived in those quadrants.
You and I were just talking about that, like before we started recording.
Yeah.
Like certain people. Yeah.
Yeah. And you have to just remind yourself like, no. I'm on my own race, right? I'm running my own race. And then on the other side of that is high faith. This is you, even with the fear, doing the thing. So let me break down the 4 identities, right? So you have the critic, high truth, low faith. The critic knows exactly what they want. They are very sure about what they believe in, but they have no faith in themselves or in the thing that they are endeavoring to achieve, right? So
that's a tough place to be, to have clarity about what you want and then also are convinced that you can't do it.
Yeah. And so the critic really wrestles with indecision, perfectionism, negative self-talk, comparisonitis. They blame, shame themselves and the people in their life, like it's your fault. Yes, they blame or shame themselves and others for where they are, right? So you and I were talking before about like marriage. And for me, early on in my marriage, I remember that I was like blaming my husband because he didn't understand what I was doing. And because he didn't understand, then that meant I couldn't do it, so I couldn't really show up because of him, which is BS, right? I was letting the story of what I was telling myself about his thoughts about what I was doing stop me and have me walking in this low faith, which is so detrimental. The critic is also afraid of judgment because they often judge people very harshly themselves. Okay. They also judge themselves pretty harshly.
Yeah. Usually those coincide.
Yeah, exactly. So then we have the pleaser, low faith, low truth. And what this looks like if you are operating in the pleaser identity, you're breaking boundaries with yourself, always with yourself. And what that looks like is you decided, okay, I'm going to write my book. And you set aside Thursdays from 11 to 1 book writing. But then here comes your best friend, Andrea. And Andrea's like, hey, can you
She's
do me
a lot of fun.
Yeah. She's like, hey, can you come shopping with me? Can you come and do this with me? Or I could really use your help. And you say, okay. And you clear off your dream. You put it on hold so that you can go with Andrea and, shop till you drop or pick up the kids or make a meal or something that is a nice thing to do because that's what friends do, but it is a betrayal to your truth and to your dreams.
Breaking your own boundaries.
The pleaser has low self-integrity. The pleaser actually has influence, but no authority. And this is a really important thing that we need to start talking about because a lot of people have influence online, but they don't have authority. This is for those of you that are coaches out there. If you are showing up and you have people that are following you, but they are not buying from you, You have shown them that you have influence. So they want to hear what you have to say, but you have no authority and they're not looking at you as the expert. And I would venture to say it's because you're not operating in your full truth and you are not operating in faith to make the asks, to make them consistently, to make them with confidence and with courage. So Andrea, right away, you can see how when we look at a book like Permission to Offend, it's not just personal development. It's not just within yourself. These are frameworks that you can apply to your business, to your relationships, to your marriage, to your children. I mean, it's really all encompassing.
How you're showing up in so many different roles in your life. Shopify's already taken the cash register online, helping millions sell billions around the world. But did you know that Shopify can do the same thing at your retail store? Give your point of sale system a serious upgrade with Shopify. With Shopify, you get a powerhouse selling partner that effortlessly unites your in-person and online sales into one source of truth. Track every sale across your business in one place and know exactly what's in stock. Connect with customers inline and online. Shopify helps you drive store traffic with plug-and-play tools built for marketing campaigns from TikTok to Instagram and beyond. Get hardware that fits your business. Take payments by smartphone, transform your tablet into a point of sale system, or use Shopify's POS Go mobile device for a battle-tested solution. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/noise, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/noise to take your retail business to the next level today. Shopify.com/noise. It's hard to find a great mentor who can help me level up. My dream mentor, Shonda Rhimes. So I was really excited when I heard she has a class on Masterclass. With Masterclass, you can learn from the best to become your best. Masterclass is the only streaming platform where you can learn and grow with over 200 plus of the world's best. For just $10 a month, an annual membership with Masterclass gets you unlimited access to every instructor. And you can access Masterclass on your phone, computer, smart TV, or even in audio mode. I'm always looking for ways to be a better writer, so I took Shonda Rhimes' screenwriting class. It helped me gain concrete technical advice, including structuring, the writing process, and with shows under her belt like Grey's Anatomy and Bridgerton, it was so helpful. Plus, every new membership comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Don't wait another moment to start your learning journey with Masterclass. Right now, our listeners get an additional 15% off any annual membership at masterclass.com/Andrea. That's 15% off at masterclass.com/Andrea. Masterclass.com/Andrea.
Okay, then we have the wounded. I have a long, complicated relationship with the wounded. The wounded offender has a lot of faith. And Andrea, you know me.
You do have a lot of faith. You also have a lot of wounds.
I have so many wounds. Okay, so the high faith, low truth. Now, this doesn't mean that you're a liar. It means that you are more of a performer. So you become whoever you need to be to survive in the moment, to fit into the room. Wounded offenders are often very charismatic. They are outspoken, but when they speak out, it's never really in support of their truth. It's more like them bandwagoning or trying to like support the underdog, but never actually speaking up for what's true for them.
Okay. Just whatever's like popular.
Whatever's popular.
Yeah.
Black Lives Matter, you're taking up the cross. Transgender rights, abortion, like you are in there. But when it comes to something that you actually care about and believe, there is a low truth component where you don't truly believe that people want to hear what you have to say and what's valuable to you because you don't think it's valuable to the world.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, it's a tough place to be. The wounded offender is passionate. The wounded offender can appear abrasive, can be perceived as not a team player, can come across as high and mighty at times, preachy even, and can also be viewed as judgmental. Do you watch The Real Housewives of any of the cities?
I have only watched the OC, but it was years ago, like when they the first handful of years.
All right, OC, Vicky Gunvalson. Wounded.
Yes.
The way that she would yell at people.
Mhm.
And you knew deep down that there was a really loving, caring person, but she's been so beaten down by the childhood that she had and the stories that she had around poverty and the ex-husband and the this and the that. So she never really showed up as her full self. She always had to be this character.
And bring other
Right?
people down with her.
Yeah, bring other people down. Okay, so then the final one is the empathetic offender. The empathetic offender has high truth and high faith. Okay, empathetic offenders know what they believe, know what they value. They are deeply rooted in their identity. You're not going to tell them anything that's going to shake their faith, right? They are open to being questioned, right? So the empathetic offender is willing to be curious. They are also charismatic, also outspoken, but when they speak, people actually listen.
Okay.
They are the authority. They are an authority. They are passionate. They are able to see two truths at the same time, right? And so empathetic offender believes that your truth doesn't make me a liar and my truth doesn't make you a liar. There's like space for all of us. We can all play on the playground together. The empathetic offender is going to say what is true for them at the risk of possibly being canceled, because the empathetic offender knows, hey, if I just have a conversation with you and if I listen to you, maybe we can get to some resolution.
Okay.
Right. And so one other thing I want to say about the empathetic offender is that they are really tolerant and open to being in community with people who might think differently, as long as there's enough connective tissue in their personal values.
Okay. Which I bet that's tricky and complicated.
Yeah. But here's the thing. Life is tricky and complicated. And one of the main reasons why I broke the book down like that with those quadrants is because all my life have felt somewhat misunderstood. And in an effort to be understood, I would bulldoze people and I wouldn't even try to understand them because I was working so hard to be understood.
Okay. Yeah. Isn't it Stephen Covey? He's the one who talks about like seek first to understand rather than be understood.
Is it he who said that?
I think it's like part of his 7 principles for, I don't know. There's so many different like great lessons out there.
Yeah. Well, I love that. I love that. And I talk about that often. So maybe I did pick it up. I've never read any of his books, but maybe I saw a Pinterest quote or something.
Yeah, probably. I think it's the seven habits of highly effective people is what it is. I'm almost positive.
Oh, okay. Well,
we'll fact check it and put it in the show notes.
Fantastic. And so, but I don't know how you grew up. I wasn't taught that growing. They don't teach us that in school, right? It's
no.
In fact, what are we conditioned to do at school? To be right. To get the right answer, to get the right grade, to get into the right school. So we are bred from birth to get the right answer.
And be the first one to get it. Be the first one to raise your hand.
Exactly. And so nobody wants to be wrong. And because we don't want to be wrong, we're not willing to examine like, well, wait a second. Do the things that I believe actually make sense for who I am today? Because we're all programmed.
That, my friends, is critical thinking skills, which like, I don't know any schools that taught that to us.
They don't teach that because now listen, if you really want to get into the stuff, why don't they teach that? Because schools really became a thing during the Industrial Revolution, right? And so what were they programming us to be? Workers, worker bees, employees. And in order for a factory to run, you need worker bees that are not going to question the system. They're just going to follow it blindly.
Don't let them unionize.
Yeah.
Give them any rights.
Let them have an opinion.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to change that. And it is hard. It is hard to have these conversations. The other day I was having a conversation with a client and she said, I'm really struggling because I am in this other mastermind. She's in my mastermind and she's in another mastermind. And she said, and I just found out that one of the teachers is a Trump supporter. And like, I can't, I feel really icky. And I said, okay, how do you know he's a Trump supporter? Well, his Facebook says patriot. And I'm like, but I'm a patriot. Like, I'm a former US Marine. I love our country. I'm not going to vote for Donald Trump. But so she starts making this whole thing. And she was like, I just feel like it's the same thing with J.K. Rowling. And I'm pissed because I love Harry Potter and Harry Potter changed my wife's life. But, she's a TERF or something. Some sort of a derogatory thing. And I said, okay, well, listen, what I'm hearing you say is that you're having a moral conflict. I said, so does that mean that you don't ever go to Universal Studios? Or if you go, you don't go to Harry Potter World? And she's like, well, that's different because she didn't start saying these things until after Harry Potter, right? I said, okay, so does that mean that everything that J.K. Rowling did before she publicly voiced her opinion is okay? And she was like, wow. So now we see the conflict coming.
Yes. Right? It's so complicated.
It is very complicated.
And you could have this conversation with Bill Cosby, with Michael Jackson, with so many different celebrities. Yeah. And artists and who have done some pretty egregious things. Right.
And here's the thing. I mean, I think Kanye West just got in trouble the other day for saying that Hitler was awesome. I don't agree, by the way. I do not agree with that. And what I am aiming to do with this book, Permission to Offend, is to make it safe for us to have conversation so that we can figure out, all right, do we have more in common than not in common? Do we share the same value system? Because how do we get things done in this world? We have to find some sort of a connective tissue. I then asked the same client, I said, let me ask you, Jeff Bezos, do you buy from Amazon? She was like, oh, okay, wait. So let me take a step back. The reason why she didn't know if she wanted to be part of this mastermind was because she found out that one of the guys was donating money or had donated money to the Trump campaign. I said, I completely understand. I said, what if you didn't know that this guy was donating the money? Would that change your opinion? And she's like, I almost wish I didn't know, because if I didn't know, then I'd be fine because I like what they teach. And here's the thing. I said, but aren't you glad that now you know so that you can make a decision according to your values and your truth?
An informed decision.
An informed decision. We all say that we want people to be more real. And we want them to speak up. But as soon as they do, we get mad at them because if you are showing me exactly who you are and I'm uncomfortable, now I need to make a change. And that will cause me to get uncomfortable. And I don't want to get uncomfortable. I just want you to believe all the things that I believe. I don't believe these to be true. These are just the thought patterns. So I asked her, I said, all right, let's talk about Amazon. Do you shop on Amazon? She goes, yeah. And I know, like, I feel conflicted about that too. I really should be shopping smaller, but, and I said, okay, so look, I'm not shaming you. I don't care where you shop, right? I care that you are taking actions that align with your truth, your identity, your values, and your beliefs. That's it. And when you start operating that way, that's when you create more flow in your business. That's when you create more flow in your life. That's when your relationships with other people become so much richer. I have one more client. Can I tell one more client story? This is
yes.
Okay. Client comes to me and she's like, my partner and I are breaking up, business partner and I are breaking up. I'm part of this organization. And in order to remain a part of the organization, I need to earn $1 million per calendar year. I said, great, we'll get you there. So we start working together. She's stressing. She's just losing her mind, the whole thing. She makes it. She gets the $1 million in the year. They let her stay in the group. Next year, she finds out the group is full of like these really people with some really racist ideas. I'm not going to call them racist because I don't know them personally, but she's a Black woman. And there were a lot of racist tendencies.
Oh dear.
So she decides she's going to leave the group. Then she discovers that there are people in the group that are making millions of dollars a year on paper, but they're not profitable. They're negative.
Oh, no, it's like Enron.
Yeah. One company is like negative almost $4 million this year so far. But on paper, they're making almost 20 million.
Okay.
And so she says, I just have decided that happiness is my success plan. I don't care if I make $1 million in a year because I'm profitable as fuck.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that's right. And it only took us a year of doing this work for you to finally own your own truth and say, I don't need this $10 million business that everyone in the industry says I need to have.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to make X amount of money to get in the room because these people said I had to have it. No. My truth, and this is what she said. She said, my truth is I live in a pimp apartment with valet service. I'm happy with my dogs. I can buy whatever I want. I can come and go as I please. And this is good for me. And that's all I want for my.
And this is good for me. Yeah. That needs to go on a t-shirt.
Yeah. And this is good for me.
Well, you got my wheels turning over here. And I'm thinking about a couple of different things, one being, which is a conversation for another time. I think, like, what does it look like, especially in the world that we're living in now, where more and more companies and people are coming out to talk about what they believe in and who they're voting for and the different topics that are the most important to you. So you can make that informed decision about who you're going to be friends with, who you're going to spend your time with, where you're going to spend your money, et cetera. It's a huge, complicated topic. And also, like, one thing at a time, like one person at a time, one company at a time, one issue at a time. And that of course comes with a lot of privilege for me to say that, where that's not the case for people who are in marginalized communities who feel unsafe a lot of the time. And I also want to ask, according to you in this book, like, what about people who are like the Kanye Wests of the world? Should they have permission to offend as well?
Well, now we're talking about a matter of free will, right? So and this comes down to a belief system. And this is why at the very beginning of the book, first chapter, we talk about the stories that you tell yourself. Are they rooted in fact or perception? And then the second chapter is all about your identity. Like, what do you believe and what do you value? So I do not believe that it is my place to say Kanye West should not be allowed to say any of the things that he says. Number one, I'm not God and I did not make the rules of the world. And number two, if we take away one person's freedom of speech, then I think it becomes a dangerous slope of, I think it's nuance, right? It's a dangerous slope because if we're going to take your free speech because you said something crazy, then no one should be allowed to say anything other than a couple of specific things, which then means that we're putting ourselves into risk of being out of integrity with our truth. What I am saying is, can we question what Kanye is saying? Just listen, question it, test it against your own beliefs. The way that I say it as a Christian woman, I say, I'm just going to test the spirit. Okay. So Kanye West is saying some real crazy things. Do I believe what he is saying is true? No, I do not. I do not believe that Hitler was a great person or enviable or someone to aspire to think like. Absolutely not. That does not align with my values and my beliefs. Do I think that Kanye should not be allowed to say that? No, I think he should be allowed to say whatever he wants. And me as a grown woman can decide if I want to support his endeavors or not. I choose not to. But I also think that this is a great conversation piece because now we all get to think critically.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think differently. I think that
what do you think?
This is why hate speech laws came about. Okay. Because you can't, I feel like, yes, freedom of speech. It's our First Amendment. It's what makes America beautiful. And there are communities, like the Black community, like the Jewish community, who have a history, and Native Americans, of genocide. Like I feel like you can't compare that to somebody going online and talking shit about Elon Musk. You know, like I think those are two, we're talking about two vastly different things. One of those things can contribute to the genocide or malicious intent to a marginalized community. The other just hurt someone's feelings.
Agree.
I think that it's a slippery slope, but one that I do think that we have to draw the line. And this is where I do think like the FCC and the government and other powers that be who are the decision makers at places like Instagram and, you know, these social media platforms who have the power to shut people down. I think that they should have that power to shut people down. And I think about people like Matthew Shepard, who lost his life in such a, sorry, I get emotional because he was so young and like, no, like you can't be able to spew that kind of hate where especially now where anyone has a voice on TikTok or YouTube or blogs or podcasts or anything where it can fuel that fire for other people to be like, well, if Kanye can say these things because we have freedom of speech and homophobes can say this, then I just feel like we owe it to everyone, especially this younger generation, to draw the line and say, abso-fucking-lutely not.
Okay, I agree with that.
Fast forward to the end of 2024 and think about your goals. What can you do right now to give yourself the best chance of succeeding? If you want to learn a new language, you absolutely should get Babbel. Don't pay hundreds of dollars for private tutors or waste hours on apps that don't really help you speak the language. Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons are handcrafted by over 200 language experts to help you start speaking a new language in as little as 3 weeks. Babbel's designed by real people for real conversations. Studies from Yale, Michigan State University, and others continue to prove Babbel is better. One study found that using Babbel for 15 hours is equivalent to a full semester at college. Now it's so easy to speak simple conversation phrases with the guy that takes care of my lawn without having to consult language apps. Here's a special limited time deal for our listeners. Right now, get up to 60% off your Babbel subscription, but only for our listeners at babbel.com/noise. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/noise, spelled BABBEL.com/noise. Rules and restrictions may apply. I have definitely been in that place where my paycheck ran out before the next one got here. Life doesn't happen bi-weekly, so why should payday? The money you earn can be in your hands today with Earnin. Earnin is an app that gives you access to your pay as you work, up to $100 per day or up to $750 per pay period. Just download the Earnin app and verify your paycheck. Then access up to $100 a day as you work and leave an optional tip. Any money you access plus tips are automatically repaid from your next paycheck. You can use Earnin to pay for a girls' night out, a last-minute gift for a loved one, or even summer camp for the kids. Make Earnin a part of your financial routine and join Earnin's over 3.5 million customers who say things like, when I think about Earnin, I think about financial stability, security. It gives me a lot of peace of mind. Download Earnin today, spelled EARNIN, in the Google Play or Apple App Store. When you download the Earnin app, type in noise under podcast when you sign up. It really, really helps the show. Noise under podcast. Subject to your available earnings, location, daily max, and pay period max. See earnin.com/TOS for details. Earnin is a financial technology company, not a bank. Bank products are issued by Evolve Bank and Trust, member FDIC. I don't identify as a Christian anymore, but I'm like, what would Jesus do? Like, Jesus would shut that shit down.
I feel like Jesus would go up to Kanye and tell him about himself.
True.
Here's my question. And again, first of all, this right here is what I love. That we get to have an open dialogue and say like, okay, I am agreeing with everything that you're saying. I am against hate speech. Let's just put some things on the record here. Right?
Yeah. And I know that about you because we're friends.
But we're friends. Like listeners don't know. So for the listener, I'm a Puerto Rican woman from the Bronx. I am part of the marginalized community. Okay. I'm a woman of color. I am against hate speech. I am against genocide. I'm against the, female mutilation. I'm against all, if it is trauma induced. Like, I'm against all of that. Okay.
Yeah.
So with that being said, there's also nuance.
Sure, of
And
course.
so what I am saying, when we talk about something like Kanye West and like hate speech laws, and we should be able to censor, I think that we have to be very careful with that, is all I'm
Uh-huh.
saying. I'm not
Yeah,
saying
no,
that
I agree.
there
And then
shouldn't be
like then it's the
censorship.
conversation of like who makes those decisions and what
Right,
exactly is hate speech. It's
right.
super complicated, but I think sometimes it's very obvious, and Kanye West, in my opinion, is an example of what's very obvious. Shut it down.
Right. It shut it down all the way. I personally think that Kanye West has like mental illness.
Oh, yes. And he's talked about that publicly, and also I feel sad for him and the
Yeah.
people that he loves and his former wife and his children. Like
Yeah.
to be so anyway, that's another conversation
That's
for
a whole
another time,
different
but it's
conversation.
so
But to
complicated.
go back to your original question, is like the censorship and everything. When I think about, well, things should be just shut down, it then takes me back to, during the genesis of the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And, my we've talked about this before on the show. I'm a breast cancer survivor,
Mm-hmm.
and my path to healing was very different than the standard of care offered here in America. In fact, many of the things that I did to heal, people in America would call it as quackery or like fake news or
Right. Woo woo.
misinformation.
Mm-hmm.
And so my concern is, at what point do people that stand to benefit from censoring truth, like, where's the line there?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah.
one of the natural things that works really well for healing cancer is not allowed in the United States. And there's a whole documentary, and there's a lot of evidence of how it was buried, right? They were doing a study at Memorial Sloan Kettering, and the National Cancer Association was in on covering the fact that there was actually an all natural it's called B17 Laetrile. Y'all can look it up. And that was having really great results, but they buried it. And they said it didn't work because the chemo companies were going to lose.
Because of fucking big pharma.
Right, because of big pharma.
It all comes back to capitalism. Like, really, the villain, always.
But I'm not anti-capitalism either. Because, right,
I think, we have
to have market. We have to have market.
Yep. It does. Yeah. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. But like, I think especially now in late stage capitalism, where we are in the United States, the villain most of the time, it was capitalism all along, like.
Yeah. So with all of that being said, then I wrote Permission to Offend is because the first thing you need to do to even be able to have these conversations without getting pissed off, because that's usually what happens, right? Mm-hmm. We have these hot button conversations, and
then someone starts crying about Matthew Shepard, like me.
Yeah, no,
I wasn't expecting to get emotional.
But you're crying from the place of like empathy for the loss of a life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is
a very young person. Mm-hmm.
If there is a reason to cry, that is the most wonderful reason to cry, and not wonderful, but like I don't want to say appropriate, because then that infers that something, anytime someone else
understandable, I guess,
not appropriate, but it's understandable. Thank you for that. So it's understandable. But what I'm saying is, like, people will get pissed. Like, I've had people really angry because I'm naturally curious, right? So I'm just going to keep asking questions because I just want to understand. Like, I want to understand how you got there. And I've had conversations with people who haven't done the work. So they're not fully integrated into their truth, into their beliefs, into their value systems, and they don't know how to have conversational debate to seek a truth that satisfies.
Yeah.
Or to have the maturity to say that no truth satisfies, and we just got to table this conversation.
Exactly. Right. No truth satisfies. That's one of the things that I admire about you is maybe it's just an ability to compartmentalize, like as a brown woman, as a Latina woman, that you can have a conversation with someone who might be just outwardly racist and ask them when you are unsafe in that conversation. Like, I don't know if it's your, experience in the military or if it's
Well, I have had a lot of trauma, and I've had a lot of, I was abused growing up. So, so I do have the ability to compartmentalize, but I don't feel unsafe.
Okay.
Right? Like if I'm in the presence of a racist, I don't feel unsafe because I've had the privilege. I have a lot of privilege. I could pass for Italian. Like I'm white passing. Genetically, I'm a brown woman, but I'm white passing. And I grew up in privilege, right? Like I went to private school. So I don't have the same experience that my best friend, who is a black-skinned black woman, has had. But even she has been privileged because she grew up with money too.
Yeah.
So I don't have the experience that a black woman from the inner city who grew up in extreme poverty, I don't have her experience. So I don't feel unsafe. But also I don't really put myself in situations where I feel that I could potentially be physically harmed.
Yeah.
I'm really cautious about that. You're not gonna,
you're smart like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And you will not kill me with your words.
No, like you could kill someone with your words.
I mean, I don't think so. The whole subtitle of the book is The Compassionate Guide for Living. And, that's important to note too, is that I am very empathetic and compassionate.
You are.
And so that's what I'm trying to teach people is like, look, there are going to be people, we just talked about it. I'm a Christian. I have many more non-Christian friends than I have Christian friends. And,
I bet you do.
And I don't I'm not here to convert them. I don't care what they believe in.
No, you've never been like that.
Right? Like, have I ever come for you? Like, Andrea, how dare you leave Christianity? You're going to hell. No, that's none of my business. None of my business. Now, if you ask me directly, hey, Rach, I'm feeling some type of way. What do you really think about this? Then I'll say, well, do I get to say what I really think? Or do you need me to be the kind of friend that just tells you made the good decision to turn your back on whatever was true for you years ago? What do you need right now? Right. I'm going to show up as the friend that you need me to be, because that is part of my core value.
And that falls into your framework.
Into the framework.
Yeah. What did you call it? High faith.
High truth, high faith.
High truth, high faith.
Yeah.
I love that. And I mean, I wouldn't have you on the show if I didn't believe in your work. I think that your work is life-changing, and it is similar to mine, but you teach it in a different way. And that's why I like to have your kind of people on the show, because it might resonate with people, especially people listening who identify as Christians. Like, for sure, go and check out your work. So, Permission to Offend.
Too. Don't just put that out there. Non-Christians too. I don't bite. I'm not going to.
No, and it's not heavy-handed at all. I know it's not heavy-handed at all. And if anyone's listening who's a coach, definitely for sure go check out Rachel. But you help women of, in all different career paths. And so, where do you want people to go to? Because I'm sure that you have bonuses and things like that.
I have bonuses. Well, listen, if you already I'm curious, you can go to permissiontooffend.com/presale or permissiontooffend.com. It doesn't matter whatever season you're listening to. If you go to permissiontooffend.com/presale, it's going to take you to the book bonus page. When you purchase a copy of the book today, you will automatically get the intro and chapter 1, so you can start reading right away. If you're like, I'm not sure about this girl, I need to know her a little more, then you are welcome and invited to subscribe to my podcast, also called Permission to Offend.
That's right.
And we didn't get to talk about the offense capacity quotient, but I've created a quiz for you to help you identify how tolerant you are and how able you are at this moment to do this work. So you can go to permissiontooffend.com/quiz. It's totally free. And I would love to see you give this work a try.
I love that you have all these different, if you're here, then go here. And all of that will be in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here and being open to having these conversations. I know I can always count on you for that. And thank you everyone for staying with us and walking in this big circle that Rachel and I just did. Yeah, exactly. I'm so grateful for your time, Rachel, and everyone listening. I'm so grateful for your time as well. And remember, it's our life's journey to make ourselves better humans and our life's responsibility to make the world a better place. Bye for now. Hey, did you know there's free secret podcast episodes waiting for you that are not part of my regular podcast feed? Yes, AndreaOwen.com/free. And you just sign up. You get a link sent to you. It's very secret. It's like a secret club. We don't have a secret handshake. Don't worry about that. But it's these motivating podcast episodes that I made for you. They're under 20 minutes each. There's 3 of them. They're for wherever you are in your life. So head on over there and grab them. They range from really supporting you and seeing you where you are and being compassionate, all the way to giving you a giant kick in your ass and telling you how amazing and gorgeous and phenomenal you are. So AndreaOwen.com/free and get your hands on that free podcast feed.
I'd like to introduce you to the Minimalist Moms podcast. It's hard enough being a mom, and the last thing you need is stress from too much stuff and an overcrowded schedule. For too long, I lived with the mindset that bigger was better, and the more I added to my life, instead of feeling better, I felt overwhelmed. It was time for a radical new mindset. Less is more. I'm not into extremes. I didn't throw everything away. My brand of minimalism is more about adding than subtracting. Get rid of the excess to make room for what you love. In other words, it's about living life with purpose. I hope you'll listen in, and my guest and myself can inspire you to think more and do with less. The Minimalist Moms podcast, available wherever you listen to podcasts.